3、2、1、スタート。
よろしくお願いします。
はい。いきなりですが、オープニングを、スタートで飛ばします。軽く後で内容を説明させていただきますが、1998年当時、スクエアから発売された江戸の初期の剣豪、宮本武蔵をモデルにした宮本武蔵を異世界転生させたアクション RPG です。主人公の武蔵は、美術品を改造した来光丸を持たされています。来光丸の特徴は四角ボタンで切るアクション、ゲットインという特殊能力が使え、R1 ボタンで画面左下の気合ゲージを貯めることができます。気合ゲージが溜まったら四角ボタンで来光丸を発射、そしてここでもうガンモドキという能力をゲットインしており、チュートリアルをカットして先にもう橋を倒してしまいます。像も簡単に壊して進むことができます。螺旋の塔というところに今来ております。つわものと剣を交えよう。さすがに道は開かれんという。
All right, hey guys. We're a little bit
slight delay, but
we're here.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, this is the Brave Fencer Musashi any percent speed run for RTA in Japan, winter 2021. My name is Zachary Lawrence. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I am Piano Man 7117.
And we've both been running the game for like 4 or 5 years. Pretty extensive knowledge in the routing and tasting and tricks and all that. So hopefully we can explain everything that goes on here.
So right off the bat, chapter 1 is pretty straightforward. I'm actually kind of interested in seeing what GanMa does do as far as a money route. There's a couple of different money routes he could take. It'll all depend on this next section and how many bats he decides to farm for and gather money.
Right, so the money in this game matters. It's in the bottom right of the HUD. Basically, this game has an in-game clock system, so certain events are only accessible at certain times of day, certain days of the week. And to advance that clock faster, we have to sleep at the in-game inn. And to do that, we need money. So there's pretty specific amounts of money that you would go for in the first chapter. And that's going to allow you to take on different routes with different healing items available to you. I would assume that GanMa would do something a little bit safer, so he might stop here for a little bit to get more money. He actually got very lucky with getting
very lucky.
A 500 coin there.
On a standard PB run, we are aiming for around 2010 as far as money, and looks like he's going to have a couple extra gels on his hands as a result. Money is also really important because in this game, we have one health resource in the form of your HP bar, which if it hits 0, it is game over. And in this game, game over is very deadly. You will be sent back to your last save point, and because this is a speed run, well, it's a marathon, so hopefully he'll save. But otherwise, there are no saves. That extra bit of money will give you gels that'll allow you to heal throughout the playthrough.
Yeah, with the exception of some very specific sections of the run, a death will send you back to the 8-minute mark or so. And it's a 2-hour run, so that can be pretty far back. Yeah, just to back up a little bit and explain the category and all that, this is just straight any percent. There's about an hour of the game that's cut out due to with glitches, but really it's just get to the final boss as quick as possible, and timing ends when you kill him. And as for the runner, GanMa's actually a bit of a new runner, but he kind of brought with him this massive resurgence of Japanese runners that we haven't really seen in a few years. So we had, I think, 6 or 7 new runners this year, and they're all Japanese, which is really cool to see.
It's really interesting because at one point, how many years was it? Like 6 or 7 years ago, way before my time, the community had some world record trades back and forth between the Japanese community and the English community that we were not even aware of because of Japan hosting on Nico Nico. So Zach himself actually at one point had dug up the Japanese leaderboard and combined them into one.
Yeah, so, but since 2017, there hasn't really been a lot of competition from Japan. So it's really cool to see all these like actually really good runners coming and working their way up the board. And GanMa, so, I mean, he's kind of just been the best of the best so far. I think he's maybe 4th place now. So that's really impressive.
Just to explain some more of the mechanics in the game, there is a assimilation ability, which if you've played Final Fantasy, you could pretty much equate it to the use of blue magic, where you're able to steal your opponent's abilities and use them as your own. And actually, some of the glitches in this game are a straight result of that ability that you'll be seeing very soon after Chapter 1.
Yeah, we saw it initially. He got the gunshot ability, and that's used for kind of a couple of story progression things. But the next time we'll see it is in maybe about 6 minutes. And we can kind of explain how that all works then.
Now we have our first boss here where we see our first bit of combat. One of Musashi's strongest attack is to charge his gauge, which you see in the left-hand corner, and hit the Lumina ability so that you can spin in a circle, and it does almost the most damage in the game. And we use that throughout this entire boss, so we can just chunk right through it and speed right along.
Yeah, you'll notice all the bosses in the game, they have like this preliminary damage that you do to it, and then once you've done enough damage, this green diamond is kind of revealed, and that's where you actually take away HP from the boss. This one's a little bit different. As you go along, it kind of regenerates. But yeah, so the rest of them, you'll see he'll be attacking just in order to get to that point, and then he'll deal damage.
And Musashi comes with gameplay that involves 2 swords. One's kind of like a katana, the blue sword named Fusion, which has really quick attacks, and then the red sword, Lumina, which is kind of like a Final Fantasy VII Buster Sword type thing, which is slower but hits for much more. And we have our first boss in the books. Chapter 1 is definitely kind of just a beginning to the game, but as soon as we get out of Chapter 1, we hop straight into the glitches and many sequence breaking right off the bat. And some of them can be kind of punishing if not executed perfectly. Unfortunately, some frame perfect tricks coming up. We'll see how GanMa does.
That was a really good start, though. Was,
yes, definitely.
Under 8 minutes, and he got a ton of money, which is going to set him up very well for the rest of the game here. So we're going to skip a few cutscenes. The next trick that's coming up is something we call L jump. And basically, the way that momentum functions in this game is you just have like a momentum value that's only red when you're in free fall. And the way you go into free fall is you walk off a ledge or you jump. And if you can set that momentum value to be very high and positive, and then you walk off a ledge, it won't send you downwards like it would if it was negative. So what we're going to do a trick that stores a higher momentum value and then walk off a ledge, and that's going to give us both a frame perfect jump, like the frame that we walk off the ledge, and it's actually just going to be a bit higher than a regular jump, allowing us to skip like this massive sequence.
So before we do that, we have to take a quick nap at the end. You might have caught it right before he left that screen in the top left-hand corner. You saw a big burly man guarding the entrance to where we want to go, and that is one of our first time sequences where, as time passes, he will eventually disappear. And so in order to do that as quickly as possible, we just sleep 8 hours at the inn right away. And he's actually going for his first safety save.
けが3%ずつ上昇して、80% を超えると動きが鈍くなってしまったりという要素が
I'm actually very curious to see where he ends up saving. He has a very generous estimate, I would say, at 230. He has done many resetless runs leading up to this, and I'm very sure all of them have been sub 230. So I have a lot of confidence in this man.
But to be fair, this guy is known for going for just about everything there is to go for. even if he loses time with something, half the time he's gonna go for it because he just that's how he wants to play it. I mean, it's really admirable, but I don't think he's gonna hold back, and even in a marathon setting.
So right here, he is setting up the glitch that Zach was just describing with this assimilation ability called Hop, which is actually kind of a benign ability in the game where it's just meant to be used to jump over these thorns that can hurt you. But if we were to cancel this ability on the exact frame that Musashi lands on the ground, it will trigger this momentum storage. But it is frame perfect, so we will see how this goes. Fingers crossed, because messing it up is about 1:30 of time loss.
Man, I'm nervous for him.
I know.
All right.
I believe he got it.
We have a good start.
I don't have audio, so I actually don't know. Yes, he got it. Perfect. Oh, this is exactly what you want in a run. Oh, go ahead.
If you've played this game casually, what you're supposed to do is you talk to the mayor. He tells you to go visit this guy on the outskirts of town. He tells you to go get a key. You go get a key. You bring it back to him. He tells you to go all the way up the mountain, build a raft. You got a raft all the way. It takes like 15 minutes. And it took 4 minutes into this chapter. We have that.
In a speedrunning setting, it saves about 20 minutes over doing it the intended way.
Yeah, and so, okay, and the whole point of getting there was we get this chest that has an item. The item allows us to climb walls, specific walls.
I like to describe these glitches as each glitch kind of leads you to the next glitch, because this item that allows us to climb walls is actually going to allow us to do our next glitch, which is called, I'm assuming he's doing it. I saw him in Steamwood earlier, but I'm assuming that was just a gag. I'm assuming he's doing Steamwood Skip. So normally in the game, you find that the entire place is filled with steam. It is basically the village's power plant, and it is about to explode, so you have to fix it. We are not going to fix it. We are going to skip fixing it. Fortunately, through the use of story cut triggers, you actually don't need to do it as long as you can access the Earth Scroll, as that will skip forward in time. And this was actually only discovered, I want to say, about 3... is it 3 years at this point?
September of 2018.
And it was discovered by none other than the commentator of the RTA In Japan run, Holy Angel Naiko, who has discovered, actually, I want to say, maybe, wait, oh, he's going on this side. Okay. That worried me for a second. I thought he was actually going to talk to him. But I forgot that he uses the tree method.
Right. So this is one of those tricks that I said, I don't know how often you're going to save time doing it, but he's going
he
for
gets
it.
It though.
It's double frame perfect to get those star jumps off the tree, and it allows you to get past Macho without sleeping late enough that he will leave.
So now he has entered Twin Peak. This is where the Earth Scroll that I was alluding to earlier is located. And so, how do you even describe this glitch? I feel like we need to start now while we still got time.
Yeah, so when you get to the top of a wall in this game as you're climbing, you just saw a little bit of climbing. When you get to the top of the wall, it just kind of pitches you over the top of it. It gives you this little boost of momentum. And for some reason, on certain pixels of the wall, if you are climbing there, it kind of registers it as being at the top of the wall. So it gives you this boost as long as you kind of jump into it. And it's really strange, but if you can chain multiple of those together, you can get past this block that is supposed to be cleared by doing that Steamwood mini quest, I guess.
Oh, it's going for the extra XP. I also want to include that in this glitch, we have no idea why, but there is a 50-50 shot at it just not working. The game just says no. So he could be perfectly executing it here, and the game could just say no, but we'll see how it goes. He's going to have to try this one again. So, it's been so long since I've done it. So he gets to an exact spot. Oh, it seems like he's just making sure his control is working properly, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would actually make note of what he's doing on the controller right now. The grip is really, really weird because you have to hit like 4 buttons in sequential frames that are all across the controller.
He does some pause buffering as he does it because each one is pretty much frame perfect as he goes.
Yeah, if you're early or late, you can adjust what the next one is, but it is frame perfect to do.
It's pretty much expected that you do not get this first try. It is very difficult. Overall, it saves 5 minutes over actually doing Steamwood.
Yeah, as P-Man started to describe, you just get into a very specific part of the wall using a series of jumps that are kind of already predetermined. You jump left, you swing your sword, you get to a certain part on the wall, you start holding right, you get to a certain part on the wall, you start holding left. And then as you start to clip through the block, you let go of X, because for some reason you have to hold that the entire time to get all the momentum that you can get. Then it will kind of stop you from climbing, and you'll just clip through.
And that last jump that you just saw him attempt, he actually did get the clip, but unfortunately, he did not get the 50-50, and the game said no, so he has to try it again. I see in the chat, actually, how does the average person even find these strats? That's actually a really good question, since we have time to talk about this. So, Holy happened to post a task of this trick, and he truthfully just said, I don't know how this works. Just take this and go. And I myself was actually the first person to do it. And I basically just jumped into a wall for... Oh, so close. The one thing he missed was letting go of X at the very top of the wall. But yeah, I pretty much just jumped into this wall for 24 plus hours, and then with the help of 2 other runners who were also on the case, eventually we figured out a setup that worked. I believe that was VHGS who eventually came up with a setup.
Mm-hmm. And Barris, but
yes, Barris as well.
To go back in that process, there's also just like theorizing this trick. We knew that if we could get past this block, that we could complete the game, like without doing this one section of the game. And there's a few sections like that where it's like, if we could just get past this thing, we know that we could save a few minutes here. And this was something that we had been thinking of since like 2015, but it just took so long. And the next trick after this, it took about 2 years between the first part of it being discovered and the part that actually made it possible being discovered.
And so what he means by that is, so the first part was discovered, and it puts you in essentially a soft lock position. So it wasn't actually useful, like he said, until several years later when the soft lock escape was found, and he finally gets it. Perfect.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he's still saving time over actually performing saving Steamwood.
And he got to show off a really cool trick.
Yes. And so we get the first scroll. There are 5 scrolls in this game, kind of your generic elements. So you have earth, water, fire, wind, and then actually the 5th one is sky, which I believe in the Japanese version was Aether. Is that correct?
Soul or something like that.
Yeah. But basically gave you the ability to fly. But anyways, each of these give you a new mechanic. And in this case, it actually gives us a new glitch mechanic. As I said, each glitch kind of leads to another glitch. And this new glitch is that if you change scrolls in the middle of doing some kind of animation, you can both store animations and cancel animations. Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's important to note that your momentum will be completely like stopped. If you jump on like one pixel of something and then you change scrolls, you will not have momentum that pushes you any further. You'll just stop in place, which is super important for the next like 3 tricks.
This next trick, actually, I'm really curious. There's like 2 or 3 setups to this next trick. I'm going to assume that GanMa is going to be doing the most difficult one because, well, that just tracks so far. It saves 45 seconds over the next fastest strategy, which was much more guaranteed, I would say, as long as you executed it properly. This one, for quite some time, we had regarded as task only, until some of us just happened to practice it enough to the point where it actually just felt natural, but it is still very, very difficult. I still question whether it's worth going for, but at the top level, you got to go for everything, right?
And you'll see he's hitting some things along the way. It's not super important to know, but as you kill enemies, as you hit them with your swords, anything like that is going to increase your stats. And that, if you route it out correctly, will save time in some of the bosses later on. But it's not very important. I don't even know if I want to start explaining until I know exactly what he's going to do.
You actually read my mind. I was just thinking that too.
But he did do tree jumps earlier, so I guess he probably will do it.
Yeah.
The tree jumps that we saw earlier when he went over Macho's head, where if you get to the top of the tree and you get that animation where it pushes you off the top of it, you can store that momentum. So as long as you hit X, the frame that you land, you'll get a big jump, and you'll see it like that. Exactly what he's doing now.
And each of those jumps are frame perfect.
Yep. So I just had a little bit too much height on that attempt.
Yep.
It's the really awkward part of the trick is you want to let go of X so that you stop climbing on the last jump at like halfway between the jump and actually getting to the roof here.
There's a very specific... Oh, you're so close. There's a very specific pixel on the corner of this roof that you're looking to land on. And unfortunately, if you are too high, as Zach said, you will actually go over it. And because you are so high, your momentum will actually not allow you to land directly on this pixel. So it is very important that not only is he location-wise perfect, but also elevation-wise perfect.
Fortunately, the line is actually a little more forgiving because there are some invisible walls that kind of guide you in. But
yes, it kind of works like a funnel in a way.
But yeah, if you're at all too high or too low, this will not work.
Oh, and he got it. Yep, perfect.
So as far as how this game is supposed to be played, this is a sequence that you get to at the end of Chapter 3. And by doing this, we skip the rest of Chapter 2, including the boss at the end of Chapter 2, which might be an issue later, and all the start of Chapter 3. But this allows us just to get into Chapter 3 and have access to the Chapter 3 locations, which is, as P-Man is saying, that's going to allow us to get to another chest that has an item that's going to let us do more glitches, to advance further.
I'm pretty sure this is the biggest cut. Is it half an hour?
This one's 20 minutes, yeah.
20 minutes, okay. And as Zach had mentioned earlier, that first half, not that trick necessarily, but a different version of that trick was discovered a long time ago. And in order to get out of this church, because you have advanced to chapter 3, the front gate is now locked. And in order to get over the fence, you require double jump. So this was actually considered a soft lock for a very long time until I don't remember.
2017.
Do you remember who discovered it?
Yeah, VHGS found this way to get out of the church in September of 2017.
And so what he's doing right here is he's actually using the scrolls to store momentum on top of the fence and gain a little bit of a hover. And then he actually manages to land on just one teeny tiny pixel that's not even visible on the corner of the roof and jump right on out.
So yeah, that way that we stored hop earlier in the run to get to that very first chest early, you can do that with a scroll swap, and you can also do it with a jump. And so if you do it with just a regular jump, it doesn't get you any more height, but it will allow you to begin a jump like the frame after you've walked off of a ledge, which will give you an extra like 1 to 4 units to play with, and just makes that last bit like, possible. It's still pretty hard. I mean, there's 3 sequences of that are frame perfect, and you have to be on the exact right positioning. But
this next section really highlights the platforming of this game. Is definitely one of the hardest parts in the run, barring all of the glitches. This is really where you get to show your speed prowess, I would say. It can be very deadly as well, which is why we had picked up so many gels earlier on. At this point of the game, you have only 150 HP, and some of these enemies are dealing in the range of 30 damage. And we even take a damage abuse early on in this level just to get through it as fast as possible. So it'll be interesting to see just how he does and if he can keep his HP high.
The damage abuse is going to do 81 damage, I believe.
Oh, wow. What? Whoa.
He's just styling on us now.
So, of course, those jumps have been known about. I have never seen an actual setup for that. I'm going to have to rewatch that later and incorporate that because that's nuts. Wow.
Yeah, 27, 54, and there's the 81 damage that we take.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a few things in here that actually do, I think, 45 damage, like swinging axes. Falling in lava, I think, is going to be 30 plus. So basically, everything can two-shot you here at this point. This sequence is using the bowl ability, which we got off the pink flowers. If he happens to hit all 10 enemies at once, he'll get a stat boost of basically a level up to every stat.
And so we haven't exactly talked too much about level ups quite yet, but we did talk a little bit about Lumina leveling up. But there are 4 different levels, level statistics. There is Lumina, Fusion. Both are based on the amount of damage you end up doing to enemies. There is Body, which also contributes to your damage. And then your Mind, which is actually how much damage you take. And your mind is leveled up simply by moving. And as a result, because it's a speed run, we move as little as possible. And your mind level is as low as possible. So later on in the game, things become very punishing as a result.
Yeah, there are enemies that can one-shot you in the end game, and I think every single enemy in the end game can at least two-shot you. Another thing we didn't really mention was these green diamonds that he's collecting. He has to get a couple of them throughout the run. 2 of them just happen to be in this dungeon. These are just NPCs that you're unlocking. In the story, they're just kind of captured by the enemy and scattered throughout the world. But they're just necessary to continue the progression of the story.
Now,
and they also give you BP, which is your mana stat in the game.
Now on the flip side, your HP, right now he has 150, and I would not be surprised if he continues the entire run with just 150 HP. There are little furry minkus that you can pick up that will give you 25 HP each, allowing your max HP all the way up to 500, and the game kind of treats it as if you would have that much HP, but because this is a speedrun, I doubt he'll grab more than one, if I were to guess. And probably finish the end game with either 150 or 175 HP.
Yeah, there's only maybe 2 or 3 that you could get without taking a big time loss, but there's still, I mean, maybe 20 seconds each to go for.
That's the first of the 4 dungeons. We usually used to do that one first. We have made a slight change in route involving levels, but he has opted to take the old route, which honestly does not change much at all. At the end of the day, you still have to do all 4 rooms in any order.
A 100% run of the game takes about 4.5 hours at the same level that you'd be seeing this gameplay. What slows it down a lot is that you have to complete the final chapter twice, because you have to complete it once to unlock a bunch of things, and then you need to beat it a second time to get the special ending. And you also have to get all your stats grinded up to an average of 28.
And that level grind takes about 45 minutes in total. That's one of the biggest issues. So he's storing jumps here. These jumps are pixel perfect. Unfortunately, he missed that one. He'll probably try at it again. And this skips about a third of this dungeon. This jump actually used to be done a little bit differently, and it involves a damage boost from these bats. But there was a lot of RNG involved, and I am so glad we don't have to do it that way anymore.
Yeah, it's a very awkward jump because Musashi runs at 4 units per frame at top speed, and you need to be either like 3 or 4 units off the edge of that platform when the jump activates. So you need to start running and run on a specific line so that you do run that far off the ledge when the jump begins. It's actually really, really annoying, which is why he messed it up once. But that was still a really good recovery. It's not uncommon to make a mistake and then have to leave the room and come back so that all the enemies reset. Because if an enemy hits you, your momentum just... I don't even know what happened. It just disappears. Any stored momentum is gone if you get hit.
This next segment, you're seeing a lot of dark rooms. The intended strat is to assimilate these ghosts at the beginning, and then Musashi has an out-of-body experience, and you're able to see what the rest of the path looks like. But of course, because we've done this so many times, and it's the same every time, we just kind of jump through it in the dark.
Progressively more complicated, but
as we come up to the last one, and this will be the end of his second dungeon. This is definitely probably the easiest room in my book, up there with the warp room, which I'm guessing he's going to do next. We tend to keep the hardest for last, as it is also the most damaging room. And something we haven't talked about yet is that as time moves, once in an hour, Musashi passively gains 4 HP. So as long as we don't take damage in any of these earlier dungeons, we can actually recuperate some of the HP passively that we lost in the bowling room that we damage abused for. And yes, he is going for the warp room as the third room. This next room, actually, it loses out on kind of, what's the best way to put this? It suffers from being a game from the 90s in that there are 3 rooms that all have 2 portals, and you have to select the right portal. But there is no way to actually know what the right portal is. without previously going through that portal. If you go through the wrong portal, you are sent all the way back to the beginning of the dungeon. So you kind of just have to guess and choose and hope for the best. But fortunately, in the speedrun, we know exactly which portal is which, and we can just take the right path every time.
There's also the challenge of each of these rooms has an enemy that will light it up, whether it's those blue flames or the bats carrying torches that we'll see in the next couple of rooms. But ideally, you don't have to wait for any of those things to light up the room. You just memorize the layout of the room and how many steps you have to take to get through each part. So if you kind of see him randomly take damage, it's just he fell in a pit that you can't even see. But it does look kind of funny if you're not really aware of what that is.
Interesting to note too, because of how lucky he got as far as money early on. I only just noticed now because I wasn't paying attention earlier when he was buying items. I think he bought about 5 gels. So he is very set and very safe right now. In PB scenarios, we usually only buy 2 gels. And sometimes we get through this entire dungeon without using any of them. So him having 5 right now, he's in a very safe spot, I would say.
And not having used any has been very good.
Yes, he had just used 1 just now, though.
So yeah, the final room is going to be coming up right after this, and it is just all platforming. And if you fall off any of them, you take a ton of damage. So
it might also give you some SM64 vibes with some of the rotating platforms.
Yeah, see, like this whole room is just pitch black, and he just memorized the layout. And he got through that really well.
So to get back to the whole reason why he's doing these 4 dungeons, it unlocks double jump and, well, I guess actually, yeah, we need double jump to actually get to the final boss of this chapter, and that would be the ultimate goal here for this chapter.
Yeah, and having double jump is going to unlock just even more ridiculous glitches after this. Pretty much as soon as we get it, it's going to be right back into what P-Man was describing, how we're just going to use it to unlock another thing, and that's going to let us unlock another thing, which is going to open up another glitch. It's just kind of go that way the whole time. It looks like he's hitting quite a few things here. I wonder if he has a specific route in mind for how much leveling he wants to do. Because in this game, every time you fight a boss, you get a ton of XP, and it doesn't carry over if you get a level up from it. So ideally, your stats are all at 0 XP at the next level when you enter a boss fight. And it looks like he's going for a pretty high level run.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. The level routing is something that has only just recently come to full fruition. We had always figured that it would help to level up Lumina. We just hadn't figured out exactly how much. And the reason why we actually discovered how much it truly saves was on pure accident, where I had screwed up in my PB a specific room in Chapter 4 that you'll see later on. And I lost a lot of time thinking that I would not be able to PB, but as a result of that time loss, I actually made it up in a way where in a boss in Chapter 5, I was able to gold by over 30 seconds, and that kind of got the gears turning for Zach, and he just kind of pulled it out, figured out all the science behind it, and we finally figured out exactly how worth it is to actually level up, and it is very worth it, as it turns out. As of right now, I would say about a minute and a half is on the table from world record. Would you agree with that?
I think potentially a minute and a half, but it's an investment of at least like 30 seconds of time lost to get your levels that high. So I think net maybe a minute, yeah.
Right. And we'll discuss that later as it comes up a little bit more. But yeah, as a result of all that level routing, I feel like there has been a lot of confusion within the community. And of course, obviously, there can be some translation issues between the English and Japanese community as far as what is optimal. But truly, we haven't really determined what is optimal, just that there are a couple of different routes. Because a lot of it also does depend on the RNG you get, as different damage rolls as well as critical hits come into play.
Yeah, it was actually very fortunate. What P-Man got in his run was about a 1 in 16 chance to save that time that he saved with the levels that he had. And so it was actually very lucky that we even opened our eyes to the possibilities of that, given how, unlikely it was that that was going to work. But yeah, there's maybe 4 routes that are reasonably usable, and each one requires a different amount of grinding, which is basically a different amount of time lost that you're gonna accept just immediately. You're gonna have to put in like 10 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds into grinding, and it basically just has a chance of saving this much. And the chance could be actually pretty low for some of them. So it's really just up to the runner to decide, do you want to go for the one that has a chance of saving the most time, or the one that will probably save some time?
And so GanMa has gotten the L belt. He is going to take a nap, as the only way you can appraise items in this game is by entering the pawn shop. And they're pretty much useless. They'll just sit in your inventory until you do appraise them. So he needs to be on a very precise timer in order to do that. And he's going to be heading on his way to not only his next piece of legendary armor, but also the next scroll.
Yeah, so the next one we have is going to be the water scroll, and it's located inside the well, which we can access. Actually, we were given a rope by the priest after we did the church sequence, so we just go immediately down there. And then we're going to get the water scroll, and the next piece of legendary armor is the L vest, which is going to increase the charge time or decrease the charge time of our speed gauge on the left side, and it's going to allow us to attack faster and use scrolls faster for the rest of the game. It actually saves quite a bit.
And this is technically a sequence break here. You're not actually supposed to be able to get this quite yet. But as I said, every time we finish a glitch, we pretty much get to do new glitches. So we have what's called the infinite jump here, which is basically utilizing that animation cancel in order to cancel the double jump and be able to do it again and again and again. You cannot, well, I'm not going to say you cannot. It is very difficult to gain height this way, but you can maintain height.
Right. So for some reason, whenever you do a double, or whenever you change scrolls or you take damage, the double jump resets and allows you to do another one, and you can actually just do these infinitely forever, as long as you have room to move. And so that got used there. It's going to get used actually a few more times in the run. It's probably the most game-breaking thing there is. Just having infinite, horizontal displacement.
And moreover, you can actually gain height with it in 2 scenarios. One is a task setting, because it is frame perfect to the nth degree, pretty much. But also, if you are sliding up a tree, or if you are jumping off of a climbable wall, you'll actually gain even more height, because both of those have that extra elevation on the jump. And you could basically just sail into the sky forever using those 2 if they're in the area.
So we're going to sleep one more time here because the restaurant is only accessible at midnight, or Yeah, I think midnight.
Midnight to 2:30 a.m.
Right. And this is where the next boss is located. So usually you would, you might have noticed a bell in the underground well by the water scroll. You're supposed to actually pick that up and then bring it all the way back to the church, which is very time consuming. And he gives you the key to unlock this section. But we have a really cool skip here, where if you just jump over the door, you go through the door. That's pretty easy.
And honestly, yeah, it is so easy. Anybody that has played this game can just pick it up and do that very easily. Definitely some oversight right there.
So yeah, now that we have the water scroll, that well, he didn't even use it there because he just didn't want. He just wanted to style with another triple jump. But the water scroll allows you to extinguish flames. You can also use it as a shield. You won't take any flame damage while using it, or lava damage. But as soon as you get hit once, it disappears. You can also oh, he's really styling if he goes for that.
All right, he chose not to.
There is a really hard infinite jump you could do there. This is the easier version. The difference is maybe half a second.
It's definitely not worth going for, but I mean, he's trying to show everything right here. And you know what? I'm glad he does.
Yeah, I'm all for it. This part is actually insanely laggy, so he actually did just zoom in. That's going to reduce lag. You'll see it in a few sections. He's playing on PS2. Also, yeah, so he just got the level up on Lumina, so he's going to go straight to the boss now because he doesn't have to worry about that carryover being lost. But yeah, the only lag reduction strats in the game are just zooming in the camera. It works pretty much everywhere. This is another, the door exists, but only as high as you can see it.
Just jump over it, forehead.
So now we are in the... Well, this is actually the second Crest Guardian of the game. We skipped the first one by going into the church early, when I said that we skipped the end of Chapter 2 boss. And basically all this boss is you're attacking this little fireball with the water scroll. And then once you've dealt enough damage to it, you can attack the core. There's a pretty specific rapid fire technique that you can do here. You can shoot bubbles with both square and triangle. If you hit both of them like 7 to 9 frames apart, you get a little bit more speed. And that was almost the perfect cycle to start.
Can you tell if he's actually going for it? I can't tell without having sounds on.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay. Let's see if he gets it. Oh, wait. No, wait.
Yeah, he's a little far from it.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, it's been a while.
So the perfect first phase would have gotten it on the first attack. It's so hard, though.
This boss, well, he's really in no real danger of dying. It's very difficult to actually optimally play this boss.
Yeah, so unfortunately we missed a manipulation there, which would have him going in a very advantageous pattern. This is the backup. Looks like he did it pretty well, though.
Very nice.
But yeah, this, in my opinion, this is the hardest boss in the game. So that was actually the ideal pattern to finish on. This would be one cycle down, which is still pretty good.
Yep, I would rate this as average. Just can't complain about it.
The third phase, we might see some of this like water shielding action that I was talking about. Actually, you see it there. So you're just going to continuously create a bubble and then take damage because it doesn't actually hurt you. It doesn't matter. And it's a little more fun than jumping over the flames.
Normally you wouldn't be able to do that, but because he has the L vest early, it allows him to charge much faster and gives him the timing to be able to do that.
So hopefully we end on this phase, but I'm not sure if he had done enough damage. That was a very, very bad pattern that he got given.
Fortunately, RNG just does that sometimes. Oh wait,
That
what?
is a really cool strat I've never seen before.
I have never seen that before. What is going on? The real question is, has he been hoarding these, or have I just not been paying attention?
Yeah, I gotta get my Google Translate out and go back to the Discord.
Unfortunately, he streams very often at times where I am not around to watch. Is that a 13-hour difference, I believe?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's 8:30 in the morning for him right now. So yeah, 50-minute Relic Keeper is pretty good. That's not a bad early game for a marathon.
And that's the end of Chapter 3. Ah, the next glitch. Yes, of course.
This is my favorite glitch of all time.
Yeah, just because of what it causes in the end.
This glitch has so many, just a chain reaction of skips. That's just so cool. Basically, after this chapter, you're supposed to do this like massive sequence of quests for the mayor, which takes, I think, about, I don't know, like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And the end result of that is you get an item which allows you to shrink this slug. But by using a different version of the L jump where we cancel hop actually 2 or 3 frames later than the stored frame, we just get a super jump. Because we now have double jump, we can get an even higher jump with that, and we can just clip over the slug. We don't need the item.
And this is another one that I would say is actually on the easier side that anybody could pick up and try within like 5 or 6 tries.
Yep. But if you do, you may soft lock.
Yes, it is important to only do this during daytime, and he makes it. A little bit slow, but he makes it.
It was actually, he went for a very fast setup, but yeah,
Yes,
he didn't get optimal height. You can just kind of zip over it, but that was still really fast. But yeah, one of the quests in that sequence that I mentioned earlier, it forces you to go through this cutscene, which if we trigger it later, it will trick the game into bringing us back to Chapter 4, where something is available to us. And we will skip an entire other section of the game, which is really, really cool.
And now we have quite possibly the easiest boss in the game, Kojiro. It actually has some historical relevance. The legendary Musashi, as told in Japanese lore, was a two-bladed samurai, and Kojiro was his rival, and he beat his rival by making him so angry by making him wait, which is described in this dialogue, which of course we're skipping. But it is a very easy boss fight. And we basically just dodge his attacks and respond with our attacks. And he goes down very quickly.
Yeah, we just want to try. I don't even know if there's a way to kind of bait these attacks, but there's 2 attacks that he will do where he's able to be damaged. Those 2 actually, the Phoenix one and the front flip one. And just stay in this position, doing this timing, something about it just kind of works. As long as you just stay on. He's getting a lot of crits. Whenever you see that kind of big red star appear, and obviously the number goes way higher, that's just a critical hit. So like right there. And those are, I don't actually know exactly what the rate of critical hits are because it seems to change enemy to enemy. You generally get a lot more on bosses though. So this is the second half of this skip. The slug is still there, and so we cannot get out, but if we get very lucky and the princess here jumps in a very specific way, so that we line up with her in a spot in the air, which is kind of just random because she's just going to jump whenever she wants to jump. She will push us through.
Oh, perfect.
That was pretty good. Only took about 15 seconds.
Not bad.
It's the
Perfect
worst
example of a glitch requiring a glitch to actually be used.
Yep. That would be the second trick in the game, where if you didn't have the second half of it, you'd be soft locked.
So at this point, we're told we have to go chase after the stupid thieves that are supposedly in some ice castle somewhere far away, and the only way we can know the pathway is if we talk to the 3 mercenaries that used to be in the castle. And those are the 3 people that we have saved. Those are the only 3 in the game that are required currently.
Yeah, the thieves that he's alluding to are the thieves that took the bell that we did not retrieve. I don't even know if we've met them yet. I don't think we have.
No, we haven't. We were supposed to, but we have not. That will come later.
But yeah, pretty unfortunate that we have to sit through all this dialogue. We haven't actually mentioned at all the differences between the Japanese version and the American version. There is no European release of this game, but the text in this version is a lot slower. The Japanese characters, if I remember correctly, they load at 1 character per frame. And in the English version, the text, I mean, it's a little bit more text, but it loads at 1 line per frame. And so it's just, I mean, it saves time everywhere to play on the American version, unfortunately.
Comes out in the end about, well, we don't actually know for sure because nobody has timed, but we assume somewhere between the range of about a minute to 2.
Yeah. There's also, this is the second safety save, I imagine.
Yes, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I would expect nothing less. It actually makes me wonder if he's doing the reverse soft lock jump later on as well then.
Yeah, there are a few jumps in here that you would just kind of go for in PB attempts, but if you fail them, you just lose the run. There's nothing you can do. I mean, you could load that save, but your run's over, basically.
As far as other differences between the English and Japanese version, there is only one other. It is pretty irrelevant, but it's kind of interesting, is that the Japanese actually has an extra glitch where you can phase through a specific door that for some reason you cannot phase through in the English version. We have no idea why. It just doesn't make any sense, but fortunately it is not necessarily faster to do this, because there is an even faster route than using that door.
Yeah, the door leads to an item that allows you to walk on ice. We will not be getting that item because it's only useful in 1 section. And of course, he's going for another one of these tricks that is so hard to do.
So normally there we would assimilate hop, and those are the thorns that I had mentioned earlier, that they are the only reason why hop exists in the first place, is just to get over them.
Yeah, and a couple slopes.
Pretty much it. And we could just triple jump over them because it's faster, but also very risky.
Yeah, you've got like a 2 or 3 frame window to activate the second jump of your triple jump. It's really, really tight.
In this next section, he's just following what is seemingly a random path. The 3 mercenaries that you talk to in the palace, and why they're so important, is they tell you which way to go. But even if you know which way to go and you don't talk to them or don't save them, the path is not available. So unfortunately, we still do have to talk to them, even though we already know the path to go.
Yeah, so coming into this next dungeon, we have a door at the back of the room that has 3 slots in it for 3 keys. We're going to have to go around the palace and get all 3 of them, unfortunately. It's theorized that you could just clip through this door.
Someday.
Yeah, one day. TM.
Somebody needs to get on it. We'll find it eventually.
So the route that we're going to be taking through here is just the fastest kind of beeline to each one there is a casually you're supposed to do them in a certain order because each one will unlock a door that's actually inside the palace that gets you to the next key. But we're skipping actually all 3 of them. So yeah, none of those doors will be used, ideally, unless he goes for, there's a safer option he could use, but I don't think he will, based on what I know about him.
Personally, I would, but that's just me.
So yeah, this is going to be the first instance that we see an infinite jump gain height, because we are jumping off a pole, which is the same as a tree, as far as how it's programmed. So yeah, you'll see as long as he does these with decent timing, he is actually gaining height here. And once again, we are not getting the shoes that allow you to walk on ice. That slope is frozen. If you land on it, you cannot get out.
That is
the first 2 soft lock jumps that he has passed.
Now that is the easier one because you can gain height from those infinite jumps. On the way back, there is no pole, so you cannot actually gain height, and it is much tighter as a result.
Nice dodges. These enemies here will mimic exactly what movement you do. As long as you do like a jump as you get into their radius, they'll still be on the ground, so you can double jump over them. It's actually really, really specific how you get over these guys. And each one of these rooms that has a key is going to have some specific challenge you have to complete. So that one just happened to be that you need the Mimic's ability, which is called Clone. And it just creates a... Yeah, see, like these guys are just really, really hard to get around. Yeah, it creates a clone of you that will be attracted, or that attract enemies. Did he get hit by a clone there?
Yeah, the mimic assimilation.
That is really, really funny.
Oh, that's
unfortunate. This is just so unfortunate. I don't even know what the best thing to do is here.
So he needs to assimilate this ability right here, but the mimic is constantly also throwing out his sword at the exact same time you are, and that is what's canceling the assimilation. He finally gets it, and he is in fact actually opting to not go for the much more risky soft lock jump. He is definitely going for the safer route, which I believe loses about 30 seconds to optimal play. But when you take into consideration that you can soft lock, which would lose 5 minutes in total, I do not blame him at all for going for this route, and I pretty much always go for this route when I do marathons for that reason.
This is very reasonable. But yeah, that was the one door that he's actually going to have to unlock. The rest of them will skip. I think.
I think you're correct, yeah. Oh, wait.
The last time I played this game, I think I was doing 100%, which is a very different route.
Yeah, this area has to be the most interesting area as far as 100% goes, because you need to get every single item and every single bin show. In here, there are so many different possibilities as far as which route you can take, but the any percent route is very straightforward and kind of funny because we take it in the backwards intended route. Normally it is red, blue, green. Here we take green, blue, red instead.
And he is not avoiding some of these mimics. They're just really good XP, honestly, for how much time it takes to do a counter hit on them. We didn't talk about counters, but they're going to come up in like 5 seconds. If you have your speed gauge full, because you're blocking, and then you take a hit, you can do a Lumina or Fusion swing within a few frames, and it does this massive counter attack that will do like 3 hits to every enemy that's in the radius. And I think it's the highest damage you could do in the game.
And you'll notice in this ice maze room right before this one, he had assimilated one of the wolves. Gives you a very important ability called D-Kick. It's just really good for movement. It comes at the cost of 4 BP, so it does need to be managed, because if you run out, Musashi grows tired and moves much slower in general. But it's very important to use this ability, as it allows you to speed through the entire section.
Yeah, you move about 1.4 times faster than running speed when you're using it.
it can be a little bit difficult to control, as the moment you use it, Musashi cannot change directions until he has landed again. And he's also going to be picking up this item right here, which is the long tube. It's the only non-key item in the game that we pick up, but it's very important because it is the item that sells for the most at the pawn shop, coming in at 5,000 Dran, which we will need for the final chapter, as there's two really important things. One is getting all the healing items necessary to make it through chapter 6 with your sanity intact, but also because in the last chapter you need to enter a crest at a very specific time on a very specific day, and so in order to set that up we have to sleep for a very long time, which costs a lot of money.
We're also going to get some BP restoring items for the late game, because there's some abilities that just speed things up so much, but they do cost a lot of BP, so
The good old cheese strat.
yeah, so we're going to need a lot of money for that as well. So this is the final room. Actually, the last room I didn't explain, but you're supposed to do it without taking damage. The counters are just very convenient, and he did that room really well where he didn't take damage, or else you'd have to re-enter. This one is just kill all the enemies. It's very straightforward. And he's once again styling by collecting items with fusion by throwing it. Just a really cool kind of thing that, for some reason, you occasionally do it, and somebody in chat will have no idea that it was possible.
One of those mechanics that totally didn't need to be in the game, but it was just that little detail that was so cool. What is he go? He's going for a level up here?
Yeah, it'd be better to do it in the next room.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Oh, he's like one hit off. There it is. And again, that is trying to optimize that XP gain by getting a level right before the boss, which is coming up right after this. But it would have been more optimal to hit these enemies in this next room, especially because if you're hitting 3 at the same time, then you can gain XP faster as well.
Yeah, the Lumina swing, it actually has a very long hitbox that has a long duration as well. And so if you can jump, swing, and then like turn, you can hit, I mean, up to as many enemies as you want, really, as long as you can turn fast enough to hit them all.
Here we got another glitch coming up. It's nothing new, just used in a fun little way, is that we never got the ice shoes, so we can't actually walk on these slopes up ahead. So instead we have to perform what is called balcony jump, where we go to a very specific pixel, store a jump, and then double jump. Unfortunately, he misses it the first try.
Yeah,
it may take a couple tries.
This is probably one of the tightest jumps of the game. You need to be at a very specific spot on this balcony and then hold a very specific angle on the analog stick to make it, and have the good timing of your double jump.
This is the only way to actually reach the Chapter 4 boss without the ice spike shoes.
Yeah, there's a few different setups for it. You could do like an infinite jump all the way around the opposite side, but that's honestly about as hard. And then there is also, you could do a D kick and then swap scrolls. That gives you a little hover as long as you do it within a frame. But honestly, that's also just really, really hard. This method is just the fastest, most consistent, and I mean kind of the easiest. It's the least inputs.
Yeah, least inputs, just the tightest, I would say.
Yeah.
And he gets it.
That's not bad. Yeah, essentially second try.
Yeah.
The actual second one didn't count.
So this is the door we were talking about earlier that we wish we could skip. The spawn point is actually behind the door, but the door is as solid can be. It goes all the way to the top of the hitbox and all the way below it as well. The only way we have found that it even exists is through the use of location cheat codes.
Not sure why he's grabbing this item, but he might think it's a memory box, which is a safe feature.
You know what I'm thinking is I'm thinking he's going for an S revive actually.
I thought all those items were very low money, but oh, maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's Topo undies or Topo hanky, quote unquote.
Yeah, the Japanese version makes them a little bit dirtier than the English translation.
So funny enough, the three thieves in this area, Ed, Ben, and Topo, the two male characters both give you the items of undies, whereas Topo gives you her hanky. But we all know what it truly is. And it's a little weird that the game thinks you should use it as a hanky. But anyways, I'm pretty sure that one sells for 2,000.
Okay.
And furthermore, it would make sense that it sells for the most.
Yeah, 2,000 is going to allow him to get an item that will basically just make death not a thing. There is one item in the game that when you die, if you have it, it will just give you 100. Well, it'll give you max HP if you take like a killing blow.
And honestly, in a situation where an enemy in Chapter 6 can do 151 HP, it's no surprise that he would go for this item, as nothing's going to save you from that. The damage is dealt in a way that the moment it's dealt, all of the damage is dealt at once. So if you get hit by something and you go to heal it in the middle of it and it one-shots you, then the heal will not go through.
So now we got our next boss. This is the third Crest Guardian, the Fire Crest Guardian Frost Dragon. This first phase is pretty simple. He's just going to line up in this way and then activate the Fire Scroll, jump to the right, and that should clear the entire phase. Usually, I mean, casually, you'd have to kind of anticipate where he's going to go and then try to get him a few times on every pass, but you can one-cycle this phase. And then we're just going to, instead of melting all these spikes, we're just going to jump all the way across this.
I have never seen that before, but I like that. What do you think?
I thought I'd do that. I could be wrong.
Huh. You're going to have to look back at the tapes.
Or so maybe it ended up not being worth it because you have to change scrolls twice. I forget, but I have seen it before.
I think you're correct. This turns out to be actually one of the easier bosses. We're able to manipulate his AI in a way where we could pretty much stand in a corner and then move to a different corner, and he will just dart forward, and we can just use the flamethrower on him, and he gets taken out very quickly. Each phase, he does have a smaller and smaller window. The only really difficult phase is the third one. And we'll see if he gets the one cycle on all three of the cycles.
Each phase is a little bit more health, and I think a little more health, and just Frost Dragon has faster animations for everything. He's also extinguishing his flame. You can see the little smaller flames to the left, right, and above him. If he walks past some spikes so that they interact, it'll deplete the fire scroll a little more so that he doesn't have to wait for it to run out. So that was a good setup. And if he gets this jump off.
Oh, a little too early on the jump.
Good. And he's just going to... I assume he's going to take a ice beam here.
Yeah, I think so too. Yep.
This is the kind of intended way to do damage to the boss, is you wait for this attack, and then he has this little cooldown. Yeah, he was pretty close to actually getting that. That's unfortunate.
The first half was very good. The second half was just a little too early on the jump. And that's the end of Chapter 4.
113 Frost Dragon's pretty good. So yeah, going back to the village, the first thing that's going to happen is Steamwood is going to be acting up again, which was the thing we skipped earlier that nobody actually saw. But because we did that skip earlier over the slug, we left that one cutscene untriggered. So we're going to go back, instantly trigger that cutscene, And then that's going to send us back to chapter 4, where there was no Steamwood problem. So this one section that is usually blocked off by Steam is not going to be, and we can just get through that. And it's such a cool kind of skip that you wouldn't even really notice watching a run of it.
It just feel like natural progression, truly.
Yeah. And so that's going to take us straight to the next scroll, the wind scroll. And then the rest of the chapters actually played pretty straight. There's not really... I mean, he might go for some flashy stuff, but there's no big skips.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll get a reverse ant dungeon room.
Maybe. Yeah,
That'd be fun.
the biggest glitch in this chapter saves, well, aside from the one that's coming up, is going to save like 10 seconds. A lot of the sequence breaks and tricks are pretty front-loaded in the first half of the game. Yeah, so we're appraising all the items, selling them now. Yeah, we have so much money, 8,000. We're going to need 2,100 remaining to do some sleeping.
Wow.
Okay, he's not getting an S
It's
revive.
really interesting.
So he had the money for it, but he chose to only get items to heal his HP and his BP.
It's kind of interesting. He went for, I think, like 8 W gels and 8 cheeses. Cheese is a great little item that the longer the game goes on, the more effective its healing goes. And if it lasts long enough in your inventory, which it will in this case, it will restore your HP and BP to full. Yeah, I'm really surprised he opted not to go for the S revive, as it adds that extra layer of security. And he definitely had the money for it, so
yeah. So this is the cutscene I was talking about, which is where you meet the 2 thieves, or 2 of the 3 thieves. This is supposed to take place just after the bell sequence, essentially. Yeah, right at the start of chapter 4. And so we're going to get through this dialogue, and then in the next tunnel that he's going to go through, all the pipes that you see are supposed to have steam coming out of them that block you from going through here. But because we have triggered this cutscene, it's sending us back to a point where that steam is not active. Because this area is actually accessible at the start of chapter 4, it's just that at the end of this sequence, there's a fire crest, which can only be used once you've defeated Frost Dragon. Which is actually another potential skip this game could have, is if you could activate a crest without defeating the Crest Guardian, then you could skip the entirety of the Frost Palace and Frost Dragon and just go straight here in chapter 4.
it was also important to note, unlike the Frost Dragon section where the spawn point exists but you can't access it, this spawn point does not exist until, or as far as we know, it does not exist until after you've activated the Fire Crest here, because it blows a hole in the ceiling, and even through the use of cheat codes, if you, of course, why wouldn't he? So he's doing this glitch. Goes back to Steamwood Skip. Oh wow,
He's so good at it.
I don't know how he does it. I don't even know how to describe it, but it is very difficult. And it is more difficult the different the angle is. If you're able to do it on D-pad, it is not so difficult. But I'm pretty sure on these walls, you have to use analog stick, don't you?
It looks that way, yeah. Because
I'll have to go back and watch what he does with his hands because I was not paying attention.
Yeah, if the camera is facing the wall, like, you can't move the camera in this game. You can only zoom in and out.
You know what that means, though? He's gonna do it for the big wall.
Yeah,
That's coming.
One later. So yeah, this is another cutscene that you trigger, which actually just sends you right back to chapter 5. So everything that you're supposed to be doing, like, this is getting you right back on track with where you're supposed to be in the game.
And so one of the things we haven't mentioned up to this point, we were de-kicking that entire time. We got our BP right down to the wire, 4 BP right at the end. But what's really nice is as we get to this cutscene, we're encased in one of the binchos that restore our BP back to full. We gain 50 off of it, and we're back to full, so we can continue to de-kick. And it's a real nice restoration to just keep on moving as fast as possible.
Yeah, and so a beginner strat here would be to take the hopper over the brambles, which obviously he's not doing because he didn't do it the first time.
When it doesn't even really save all that much time. Here it saves more time.
Here it saves a lot of time because when you get that hop ability, you clear having D-kick. And he is going to be able to D-kick up until the middle of the ant dungeon.
Oh no!
That river is very hard to one cycle.
It was so close. Almost.
Usually, if you're not going to make it, you bail out on that little part on the right, but he went for it. I respect it.
And so after you get the win scroll, it triggers this little cutscene where an ant has mysteriously just appeared out of nowhere and is attacking the gondola, which you never fixed, but because we have sequence broke, it is completely fixed. Apparently, the gondola worker was eating syrup, and I don't know why. But anyways, so we must kill off this giant ant, and the best way to do that is to ride the gondola and squish the ant. But first, we're going to be using the inn and sleep for a couple days because, saving the world's not that important sometimes.
Yeah, he needs a 5-er. Or, 80 hours.
And so this is currently Monday.
Yeah, this is setting up. The very last dungeon of the game is only accessible for whatever reason between 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. of Fridays. So we're going to sleep until Thursday morning because we're pretty sure that the last dungeon is going to take us about 28 hours. And then we're going to get right there at the right time. We won't have to do any sleeping. If you're more of a beginner with this game, you could do this sleeping in Chapter 6 and not have to play Chapter 5 exactly the same every time. But this is just kind of a more convenient route to have.
Well, what I really like about this little tidbit about the game is that the reason why it is specifically on Sky Day at 7 o'clock is that the Sky Scroll, which is on a rotating platform in the sky, happens to be hovering over the wind crest at this very specific time, and that is actually what is causing the rain. And so as long as you enter at that, or not enter, but be there at that exact time, then you are able to teleport up to it.
Yes, there is a lore reason that I had forgotten.
It's actually a really, I think, well thought out riddle that they give you, because they also give you clues through the use of a note.
Yeah, this game has actually a lot of kind of little details like that. There's a library in the game, and there's a ton of NPCs, 35, 40? There's 40 NPCs that you can talk to in the castle, and then there's all the villagers, and they all have dialogue. Of course, he's going for another one. Okay, so he is getting a little bit of extra HP. These guys can take a little bit of time to grab, but that was pretty quick. But yeah, there's all sorts of villagers and people you can talk to, and every chapter their dialogue changes, and they'll kind of give you hints about where to go and kind of the backstory of different aspects of the town and the world.
So we haven't really talked about the wind scroll yet. It's basically spin to win. It can be used to dig holes as well as blow away smoke. As you saw here, he blows away poison. It has very few uses, actually, besides looking very cool. But we use it a couple times here. And, of course, on the boss, as it's thematic to each Crest Guardian is weak against its corresponding scroll.
There's almost zero use for the wind scroll outside of story progression. It's like one very specific trick that really isn't even that useful. Yeah, we still have D kick here, which is like obviously speeding up this so much.
And this is probably why he opts for the extra cheese, I'm guessing.
Yeah, possibly.
Oh, please don't tell me he's trying to preserve D kick all the way to chapter 6. Don't tell me he's got that in his back pocket. There's no way, right?
On him, yeah, maybe. Alright, this is another use of it. There's a couple of like wind tunnels in the game at this point, and you could just get through them with the wind scroll.
This is also where we're assuming he's going to be losing D kick. This section requires you to use the hopper in order to progress. So unfortunately, D kick is lost. There is a TAS only strat where you're able to keep D kick, but it is TAS only for a good reason.
This trick is so dumb casually.
Yeah,
this
that jump. Very difficult jump. This game has a handful of jumps that really just makes you surprised that they thought it was a good idea to have in there casually.
Alright, how fast are you gonna do this wall?
Alright, this is the fun part.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
Oh, he did that on he did that on D-pad. Oh, he's going for it.
Alright, let's see.
This is so hype if he hits this. It looks like it's correct,
looks
right?
like it's good. So he keeps that momentum building aspect of being off the wall. Like if you jump off a wall, your infinite jumps will gain height. And while he's doing that, he's hitting that switch. Once you hit that switch, you cannot go back down in bounds. The fan will be on and it will push you upwards. And you also cannot get back onto the wall. So you have to hit that thing while you're jumping off the wall, maintain all that momentum as you climb up the wall, or, well, not climb up the wall, but as you infinite jump up the back wall, get out of bounds, and then go back around. You can go back through this section and skip, I don't know, half the dungeon. I think it only saves about 15 seconds, but it's so hard and so cool.
That actually makes me so happy that he nailed that. I think that's the first time in a marathon, right?
Absolutely. Why would anyone go for that?
Yeah, it saves very little time, but it's just so cool, but it's so hard as well.
Yeah, one thing he just did there was he took a little bit of damage from that purple mushroom that inflicted poison on him. When you have a status effect like poison or tiredness or low BP, you get a maybe 10 times higher crit percentage from my testing. And that's just going to be super useful in the next section. This is a like 3-minute auto scroller. That's just so sad that we have to sit through every time.
Yeah, this is the part where we'd ask for donations if this wasn't a restream, because there's nothing interesting going on here. The only way you can really make this interesting, and it's been done by actually only one person by the name of Rillick, is he has done this blindfolded, this entire section. Which honestly is crazy. I've thought about doing it myself, but I could just never bring myself to do it quite yet.
Yeah, learning it's a very good use of time.
It does not save any time. It just looks cool. I guess it could make some money at a marathon, but that's about it.
So yeah, this is actually one of those sequences I mentioned way at the start, where if you do die here, it doesn't actually matter. This is one of the few sections that has checkpoints built into it. Every time we get to like a lit up part of the tunnel, that's actually a checkpoint.
And of course, the path is the same every time, so some of this might look difficult, but it's very easy once you've done it a handful of times. I do remember casually, it took me many tries to get through this, though.
Yeah, the last section, the tunnel begins to wind, and so you can't really see things as they come up, and they come up, I think, twice as fast as what they're doing now. So it can be a little bit scary.
After this section, we have the Chapter 5 boss, the Queen Ant. Not much to say about it quite yet. Not without seeing it.
Yeah, but it is worth pointing out that it is one of the few bosses in the run. That one, Kojiro, and there's two coming up later, where the amount of damage that you output via kind of having like bigger stats actually matters. Like with Frost Dragon or Relic Keeper, when you were just using the scrolls to do damage, those weren't affected by your stats, but this one is. So all those enemies he's been hitting throughout the run is almost entirely for this boss fight.
Yeah, this is the most important boss because while other bosses, it's nice to have the extra damage because, well, you can kill them faster. This one allows you to skip phases, or not phases, but attacks, essentially. So the difference between a couple of damage could be 30 seconds.
Yeah, every attack cycle that the next boss has is 30 seconds. If you don't do any leveling and you like get pretty good luck, it's 3 attacks, 4 attacks, then 5 attacks. If you get really bad luck, it'd be 4, 5, and 6, which loses a minute and a half if you just get bad luck. But with this level routing, I would expect it to be like 2 attacks, 3 attacks, and 4 attacks, which is, you know, a minute and a half better than if he didn't do any leveling at all. Obviously, it costs some time to level, but it's going to be made up here.
So Zach had mentioned it earlier, but just to, he's going for a safety save as well here. Doesn't lose much time, but to reiterate what we were talking about earlier, as far as grabbing poison, it increases Musashi's crit rate. From our testing, it goes from about 5% to tenfold 50%. And so it makes the boss a bit less RNG, but it's still very much RNG.
Yeah, when I was saying like you want to get 3, 4, and 5 attacks on each phase, that's basically just with. Oh, by the way, P-Man, yeah, we are good. I think he's referring to the chat.
Oh, okay.
You basically need, I think, 2 crits, then 3 crits, then another 3 crits on the old route. I'm not sure what he needs here. This is a nice little skip. This is, I'm gonna coin this as myself. Sleeping here at least. This spot has been known for a while that you can just stand there.
Unlucky.
But if you sleep during this fight, you can advance the clock a bit, and it cuts out 1 sleep at the end, which saves, I think, like 8 seconds.
We get some nice controller ASMR right here. To avoid this attack, you just have to rapidly rotate your controller left and right over and over. Funny to note that in this boss, you can... Oh, is he good? Yeah, okay.
Was that a 2 cycle?
I don't think so. I know he missed a crit. But in this boss, you cannot move up or down. You can only move left to right. So if you try to break the stranglehold going up and down, the game actually won't recognize those inputs because they're just not allowed in this boss.
Also, those little plants on the ground that are being dropped by the enemies, those will take away your poison, which you don't want because then you will have to take poison on the tail. It's going to damage you, and it's going to basically take away the opportunity to spend some time hitting enemies. And hitting enemies here is just so important because it's going to level you up a little bit more. So he should be doing more damage in every phase.
What's actually funny here is that if you get bad RNG in this fight, it means you end up fighting more larvae. So it's actually possible that while you might lose time, you can make up a little bit of it by getting a level for the next boss. But it's mostly negligible. You would, of course, still want the good luck.
That was so cool. He did a spin slash, which gives you some iframes to avoid taking damage on that one attack. That was pretty funny.
He gets phase 2. He's got 1 more to go. I actually wonder if he does quick core. I would assume so. Starting off with no crits for phase 3. I would say this hasn't been the luckiest Queen Ant so far.
Yeah, it's been pretty unfortunate actually.
Oh, 2 in a row.
Yeah, to point out how P-Man got really lucky in his PB with this fight. He got 4 crits in a row in the last 4 hits of the fight, which, yeah, it was like a 1 in 16. So it'd be 50-50 4 times in a row. So it was actually very, very lucky. Usually,
kind of unfortunate for me because now I just can't run anymore against my PB because I'll always lose time on this split.
It's actually unbeatable. You'll never PB again. I don't know how to tell you this.
I'm over it.
Yeah, this attack is actually, you don't have to do that. You can just avoid the claws, but it wastes like 2 seconds, then like 4 seconds, then 6 seconds, I think, to avoid them. So it's just faster to break out.
And right now, I'm actually a little surprised that he's okay. Now he is sleeping. Good call. So he wants to be exiting this fight around 6 o'clock in the morning, because the goal time is 7 a.m. when you enter the next area. He's going to be a little bit under that time.
Hey,
he goes for the quick core. You want to explain that real quick?
Yeah, so if you hit the core from the right side of it, then you will fall off the ant, and it forces you to respawn in the middle of the ant, and then it drops you down right next to the core. It saves like a second and a half. But, I mean, it's a really cool second and a half.
So, assuming all goes to plan with this next glitch, he's going to have to sleep a little bit. Not too much, just a couple hours. But normally you'd want to be here around 6 o'clock-ish, because you have a pretty generous window of 7 to 12 that the rain happens. And we see John for the first time.
Yeah,
no, wait, not the first time, but...
This is kind of a major story character that we... is it? I think it's the first time.
We see him after Elbrace.
Oh, okay.
It's the second time.
You're supposed to talk to this guy many times throughout the run. Or throughout the game, not the run. But yeah, that item he just gave you is another kind of clue to solving a dungeon later that we don't really need, but it just kind of gets automatically added to your inventory.
Okay.
He just wants the 300. That's fair.
I've actually seen him do this in another run. I think he does this in even PB attempts.
Yeah, so like when you're oh really? Because you need to also get the chef. And
yeah, he just assumes that he's not going to get good BP RNG.
Fair enough. But yeah, the big ability at the end that's going to speed everything up requires 50 BP. So obviously having 300 BP is going to allow him to get 6 uses instead of 5, which is, I mean, that's fair if he wants to go for that.
And what's funny, actually, this route would pretty much mean you could just go itemless in Chapter 6 if you were that insane.
Yeah. It would be really, really bad. Yeah, very, very not fun time to do with no items, but it would be fast.
So this next glitch is utilizing a trick we've already seen a couple times in the...
Oh, here we go.
the infinite jump, but we call this one the monster jump just because of how giant it is. We have to go over this giant invisible wall. And the reason for this is the intended way to get the wind crest is that you activate the earth crest right below it. But because we actually skipped over the Earth Crest boss, you still can't activate the Earth Crest. And so it actually makes this section impossible to get over unless you do this method.
Yeah, it's just that's another one of those tricks that's like, it comes back. Oh, is he going for another one?
Nope, changed his mind.
Okay. It's another trick that's like, you see the first half of it, 20 minutes into the run, and then the second half of it, an hour and 40 minutes in.
He's going to sleep till exactly 7. Oh, nope. He thought about it for a second, just seeing if he could get that one swing in to get it guaranteed, and once he couldn't, he was like, I'll just move on.
I'm not sure if GanMa's doing commentary on the RTA In Japan channel, but I know that Naoko is doing commentary for him. But that is on the Japanese channel.
The commentators here are myself, PianoMan7117, and Zachary Lawrence.
I wonder if this is much harder on the Japanese version because of the text.
That is actually a very good point. So this section is very cycle based, and because the text boxes in Japanese are a little bit slower, even the slightest bit can throw the section off.
Yeah, so he actually needed a second triple jump for that, the second one. On the English version, you do not need that.
What's really cool about this section is it kind of forces the player at this point to use every scroll at his disposal. This game does a really good job at the end of pretty much you have reached the point where you have everything and now you have to use it all.
Yep. Except for the shoes.
Right.
But yeah, even like they make you climb things and double jump over platforms. It's really cool.
So this takes us to our fifth and final scroll, which still baffles a lot of people as far as why they chose this element of the sky scroll. I guess they just really wanted Musashi to fly.
Fair enough, it's really cool.
In the run, we use it pretty much in the same way as intended. There is no glitch related to it. But it's actually kind of funny. With infinite jump, it's almost like we had the sky scroll the entire game.
That was a 140 sky scroll. So this is definitely sub 230 pace, probably around 215, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which is pretty good.
Just based on how everything has gone so far. Goes for a safety save.
Now this one, I don't want to be mean to the guy, but I really, really don't like the safety save. I mean, obviously it's so necessary. The next boss is so hard, but there's so many cycles here that just, I mean, if you don't know, I mean, maybe he's practiced them with that save. But if you get off at all, it's just so hard to get through this section without knowing
with the spike walls coming up.
Yep. So all these rotating platforms and everything. Yeah, so he's just waiting on all the cycles.
Yeah, he's taking his time.
Ideally, you do this entire section in the exact same amount of time every time. But yeah, the next boss coming up is just, you know, a run ender for literally everyone that plays it. He can two-shot you with every attack. He does a lot of attacks.
He is not playing around when it comes to safety here at the end. I'm actually, like, seeing this, I'm really surprised he opted to not go for the yes revive.
Yeah, that was another chest that if you open that, you throw off this cycle. And it can make this really hard to get through as well. The normal cycle is just hold up.
It actually works out perfectly. It's really nice. Now I wonder, he goes for all this. He goes for all the safety strats, but he also goes for all the swag strats. So I'm gonna assume he's gonna go for the Ben 1 cycle. Very difficult strat. I actually think... Are you the only one that's done it in a run?
On the lowest level in route, yeah.
Yeah.
My last 2 PBs have had it.
I know he goes for it, but I don't think I've seen him get it. It's very difficult. It's one of those tricks where, like, so many people go for it, but don't actually get it. He's going for it. He needs... No, I think he's just decided...
Not sure what levels he's at, but without a lot of leveling, you do need 3 hits in the air, or else you need to get lucky with crits.
This is looking like this is going to be at least a 2 cycle.
So these counters are just like massive. They do huge damage. This is he just did another instance of abusing iframes with the spin slash. It's also just better to attack with spin slash as it does more damage.
As Zach had mentioned earlier, this boss is very much a run killer. Any of these hits that could be hitting him do 80 plus damage. In some cases, even up to 140. But he does a good job. Doesn't take a single hit. He gets through it.
So I'm assuming you'll save after every boss at this point. This is the only part of the run where, well, other than the very first chapter, where they give you the option to save outside of the inn.
Now, to me, this section is kind of on the boring side, but I know you really appreciate this section. Just from a casual standpoint, cool. it is. It's funny because, like, color-wise, it's just so drab. Like, but it forces, as I had mentioned earlier, it forces you to use everything that you've gotten to this point, which is really cool. And it also creates a little bit of a puzzle, as you'll notice. He's avoiding certain doors. And at some point earlier on the game, we had sequence broke, so we never actually got this item. But there's an There's an item that is a calendar with all the months of the Thirst Quencher Empire, and they are all different little icons that you're actually seeing on these doors, and you have to follow the exact path, or you have to start all the way over.
Yep, and there's some pretty bad jumps in here that, yeah, if he falls down at any point, he will have to restart this whole section, and you can't, was it 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes if you fall at the very end? And it's really not easy. Like, it's not uncommon to make a mistake here and just lose a run.
I forget exactly how many frames when I tested out earlier the other month. It was either 2 or 3 frames for a casual jump is kind of insane. Yeah. This is a nice little skip that he's going for right here. And skips a cycle. It more or less just looks really cool. You just clip yourself into this little block and it forces you all the way up. And then you don't have to wait for it to come back down.
Yeah, it does save a good amount of time. Alright, so it's the last room before the wind scroll room, which is just the worst room. And it has that 2 or 3 frame jump that P-Man mentioned. Hopefully he gets it.
Fingers crossed. This is like a 1.5 minute time loss if he does not make the jump. And again, it looks so simple, but it is actually so tight. Hey, he gets it.
Beautiful.
Nice. And then there's one more room before this upcoming boss. That's nice and straightforward, forcing you to use the sky scroll.
One more cheeky triple jump here.
Just to save a few seconds.
Yeah, saves some menuing. You just immediately go to the regular normal swing. Yeah, and this is the last boss that is going to be affected by stats. Another like very cycle-based boss where you're just trying to get this in as few cycles as possible because every one is, I think the first one is like 7 seconds, the second one's 14.
So right there, you might have noticed he was just kind of standing in the laser. There's a nice little exploit in both the bottom hand, left and right corners that they did not extend the hitbox of the laser far enough that if you just stand on the corner, you're perfectly safe.
Oof. Okay, so he's not going to heal here because he does have enough to tank one more hit. Yeah, this boss is just, I mean, it's pretty random. The first spawn is going to be influenced by where you are in the room. So he goes to the bottom right of the room. It's always going to spawn top left. And then he goes into the middle to make sure that he's equidistant to each possible spawn.
Oh, he misses the spin, unfortunately, a little too late.
Yeah, so he was trying to make sure that his spin wasn't going to end with where the fireballs would hit him, so that he was out of iframes but still standing still. Kind of an unfortunate one to deal with. If you get a spawn that's at the top, where like this one, where the fireball is already right there on you, you can really only get one swing in reliably before you have to do the spin slash. But if you get spawns that are on the opposite side of the room, you can usually get in 3 fusion hits and then a Lumina hit.
And then after the laser, you can always get 3 fusion hits in. That's the consistent half of the cycle. And it just keeps repeating over and over.
This is probably the worst luck he could have gotten.
Yeah, I would agree.
I also think he did not get a crit, which is unfortunate.
No, he has not.
That should be the end.
Nice. Time for the best part. Easily. Best part of the game.
Yeah, so coming up right here, we're going to get the grenade ability, which is the one I was talking about that just destroys everything, really. I think it does the most damage of pretty much anything in the game aside from countering.
I think so, yeah.
And we're just going to spam it on everything and just blast through this entire section.
Now, granted, that doesn't make it easy because anything in this area that hits us will pretty much bring us down to half health. Not quite, since he has 175 HP, but if he were to have stuck with the stock 150, then you can pretty much guarantee if you get hit, you have to use a healing item.
You'll also see him zooming in a lot here. This is just the super laggy part of the game.
Yeah,
fortunately, GanMa runs on PS2. He also killed that guy because he can do a ton of damage.
Oh,
that was a really good block.
He must do that consistently. That was sick.
But yeah, they do a lot of damage, and their attack has a ton of particles that lag the game. But like I said, he's on PS2, which is pretty good. Fat model PS2s and PS1s are pretty laggy with this game, and then PS3s are really, really good.
Is he just breaking out the guide in the middle of the maze? What is he doing?
I think he's looking for the Topo dance codes here.
Oh, is that what he's doing? Oh, dude, that's awesome. Oh, that's too funny.
He just flipped.
Oh my god, dude.
I mean, I'm gonna admit, like, I do this too. I gotta pull up a guide.
Am I the only one that has this memorized?
Probably. Yeah, it's funny. There's some things that we like theorized and thought about, and then it just turns out they're in the Japanese guide, and we just never knew it.
Yeah, the Japanese guide is actually insane. There's actually glitches in the strategy guide. Brady Games needs to step it up. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. But yeah, this part, he doesn't really have to use any items because these doors all drop a bunch of stuff. And we're getting to the last wall that P-Man mentioned earlier. We would like to see him do another massive climb up it.
He will definitely be doing it here.
So funny.
This is probably one of the easiest ones to do it on, so I will not be surprised if he does it here.
Yeah, so when the camera's head on with this, it's a little bit easier. You just hold left and right. But yeah, this is so cool.
He's just so clean.
Yeah, he's really good at them. I gotta implement that. That was so fast.
So we go to the underground section. This section could be a little bit more deadly, even.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of big walkers. There's actually some glitches here where we can clip through the walls. We'll see if he gets them. It could be a little tough, and more importantly, if you miss it and you happen to it involves clipping through the big walker. So if you just happen to land in front of the big walker, there's a good chance you could just be flamed. Oh, he unfortunately doesn't get the clip, but he does live to tell the tale. Yes, he heals very smartly.
Yeah, there's a few instances in this game where an enemy can push you through a wall. There wasn't any in this run because it's not really necessary, but that door and the one coming up, you can get the walker to push you through. And the first one, I mean, they don't actually save that much time, maybe 8 seconds each. I forget the exact number. But they are really cool.
It looks like he had the bad spawn.
Yeah, this spawn's pretty bad, so he's doing an attack already, which means he won't get to the door fast enough to save time. So he's just going to take out the doors normally. The next sequence has this like mini boss fight in the middle that I think should take a long time, but having grenade in this section just kind of dummies it, which is really cool. You just
I remember as a kid using the fire scroll to kill it, and it takes about 15 minutes.
And this is the final leg of kind of normal gameplay here. We're gonna have a few bosses coming up, and that's it. So that was really good. He caught those Bincholons, that's the consumables or droppables. He caught those in midair, so he didn't have to use a item. I think he's done this almost itemless.
Yeah. No, not necessarily. He used 2 items that he traded out for chests, actually.
Right.
So realistically, he could have done it itemless and only used the items in the area.
He didn't use cheeses though, right?
I think he might have when you said he needed to heal.
Oh.
I think.
Or
he might have just grabbed it from the big walker that he killed, actually.
Yeah, I thought that's what happened, but you'll notice he's on 0 BP, but this is one of the few sections of the game where time doesn't actually pass, so none of the status effects actually have any real effect on you. You don't get tired in this section. Unfortunately, if you take poison earlier in the game and then you get here with poison, it doesn't do anything because time doesn't pass.
Including not increasing your crit, unfortunately.
Yes, so that's... He's just showing off how easy this rhythm game is by going way behind her. Yeah, this is... you get to this boss, she says, "I'm a girl, you can't fight me." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, good point." So they just decide to settle with the dance-off, which I think inadvertently breaks her legs. So I don't think it really worked out the way she thought it would.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she dies here, actually.
This is just like so...
Oh no! He should have been using the guide!
Please heal. I mean, it only does 80 damage, but please heal. But yeah, this just makes so much sense for the game. If you play through it, if you play through it and you understand the dialogue, there's just so much quirkiness to this game and so many goofs and just puns, and it's just a very funny game. And so it's just totally fits that they would have a dance-off as one of the final boss battles.
Yeah, unfortunately, all the text in this game is skippable, so it is a little bit lost in the speedrun. But if you have not played this game casually, I definitely suggest finding a way to pick up this game, which I'm sorry if you do not have this game and want this game, because finding a copy of this game is not the easiest thing in the world, at least in America.
At least cheaply.
Yes.
If you have like $100,
yeah.
If you have $100 and you don't want it, you can definitely find a copy.
Yep. And unfortunately, the digital copy on the PlayStation Network store is only available in Japan. It did not come to the NTSC U PSN store. For the PS3, that is. And so, her legs are broken. You move on. We move on to the last Crest Guardian, and we see a new character in the form of Colonel Capricola, who's actually... should we do plot spoilers? I feel like I should just, let people play the game, actually.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear about the story. But this is basically the giant plot dump at the end. There's a great plot twist at the end
Like
that nobody saw coming.
It's just there's so much text at the end. It just kind of it's sad to watch on the Japanese version because it's so much slower. But
didn't you time this section at one point?
Yeah, I did. I think it was like 15 or something seconds longer, and just like that one text at the end. Yeah, we have one more Crest Guardian, and as with all the other ones, we're going to use the scroll that we just got, so the Sky Scroll. This entire boss is fought while levitating. It's also, I think, the most random boss in the game. There's 20 spots where the core can appear, and you just have to search as efficiently as you can to find it as fast as possible. And you have to hit it like a ton of times. I don't know, 10 times.
It's basically Flappy Bird.
Yeah, that's pretty much how he controls.
And I can't praise this game enough. That's one of the most unique things about all the bosses in this game is that each one feels completely different from the last. And you're using mechanics that you might not have used the entire game, and it just feels natural to go through.
Yeah, so what he's doing here... Oh, that was so lucky.
I was very lucky.
He's predicting when the core is going to spawn. And then as soon as that happens, he's going to count like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he's going to drop to a different layer and continue searching. On this phase, it can only spawn. Oh, it's on the top. So one more after this. I don't think you saw it. On this phase, it only spawns on layers 2 and 4. So you just kind of hover in place and wait for it to come around. If you happen to see it on the left side, you can go left, but some people try to go all the way left, and it's just so hard to keep up with the tower when it's spinning the same way that you're kind of going around it.
Speaking of which, as you do more and more damage to the tower, it slowly speeds up more and more. And as Zach mentioned, it becomes harder and harder to keep up with.
So yeah, these... I'm not sure why it's still going left. It's clearly on the right. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
This phase is super dangerous, by the way. I think each of these lasers does about 95 damage.
Yep.
The next phase has an attack that will invert all of your directions if you get hit, but I found a nice little spot that you can just hover, and you will not take any damage from it at all. All right, the one after this, I guess.
And also, just as a reminder, just how absolutely punishing it is. If you were to die on this boss 2 hours into the run, you are sent back to the 7-minute mark, or 9-minute mark, basically.
Yep. So yeah, if he stands here, I mean, doesn't matter where these attacks spawn from. You're supposed to just kind of...
Yes, and dodge.
You're supposed to just like try to find a spot that's safe, but no matter what the game throws at you there, that spot's safe.
We got one more hit.
Yeah, overall this hasn't been too bad.
Yeah.
He got all the main things he had to get here, so this is pretty good. If you fail to get the like maximum amount of hits on any one phase, it's so much time loss. Like if you have to go for another phase, it's like easily a half-minute time loss.
So now we finish off the last Crest Guardian. We're staring down the crest right off the bat. but we unfortunately never actually get to use it. We lose a trade of sorts where we're supposed to get the princess. The ultimate bad guy gets the sword that you've been using this entire time. And, well, I'll let the cutscene speak for itself.
Yeah, unfortunately, you just have to mash through all this. Just a lot of pushing X if you're playing the Japanese version, or just a lot of circle in the American version.
So without spoiling anything, I will say this game starts out very goofy and lighthearted, but the ending is pretty dark, I would say. As you can tell by what's going on. You can't really understand it, but... Well, you can just tell by context clues.
Yeah, two people just kind of casually get murdered in this cutscene.
Yo, but real talk, what is he looking for now?
I'm not sure. That's all in color too. That probably costs a lot of money.
I think it's like $30 on eBay.
Really?
Yeah, that's the same one Short has.
That looks so nice.
I've debated buying it, but I already spent my my money as far as books this month. So
yeah, he summons this Wizard of Darkness that was sealed inside of Lumina by the original Brave Fencer Musashi. We were kind of late on the commentary, so we missed the very start, explaining what the cutscenes were about. But throughout the whole game, you are unlocking all these crests, and you come to find that they were actually sealing this guy within the sword. And then the main antagonist of the game releases him and just tells him to go kill you. And for some reason, he just agrees to it.
I do think it's kind of comical the way Dark Lumina literally has bolts sticking out of his arm as if to look like an action figure.
Yeah, action figures actually play a part in the speedrun of this game, at least in 100%.
But fortunately, we never actually have to fight this version of Dark Lumina. We just have to run away from Dark Lumina.
And that's fighting enough.
Yep. It's very straightforward. It's just a straight up path that make sure you don't fall, because then you're going to redo this entire section.
Yeah, it can be awkward. If you jump like the frame that you land, it just kills your momentum.
Specifically on an uphill incline.
Yeah. So
like one of those.
Be really awkward.
I think I've seen people die at least like once in a speedrun on this section. It usually doesn't happen. It's pretty safe.
And Kojiro's back.
Yeah, so Kojiro just kind of shows up for no real reason to kidnap the princess again. Because why not?
Not even sure how he got here, to be honest. I like how Dark Lumina has 0 walking animations. It makes him even more menacing somehow.
Just hovers.
Kind of floats in here.
And this ultimate being actually absorbs Kojiro, but as a result, arguably becomes weaker. And for some reason does this.
Well, I mean, he gets bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, now somehow with Kojiro being absorbed, he is even more amped up to fight Musashi.
And becomes a little lizard-like. Now, there's the next section I have seen people die on. And by seen people die on, I mean died on. Me. It's me. I died on this section many times.
It's actually kind of cool. I'm not actually sure about the Japanese voicing for that, but there's one time in the game where Lumina talks to you and it uses the same voice that it uses right there.
Yeah, that's true. So this section actually is the laggiest in the game, but that did not look that bad. Was that just me?
This might be like a 90k PS2.
Yep. So depending on which console you're playing on, this section could be so laggy or extremely laggy.
This might even be PS3 now that I'm looking at it.
Well, I can't tell based on his controller because that's definitely a third party.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that he runs on PS2 though. Yeah, he does.
So now we finally fight Dark Lumina, and just like fighting Kojiro, this is equally easy. I would argue probably easier than actually fighting Kojiro once you've learned how to fight him, which is especially funny because casually, so many people struggle with this actually.
Yeah, and he does a lot of damage actually. If you mess up like anything here, it's so punishing. I think you lose about 10 seconds if he grabs you, and you lose like 90 HP, and then he can throw you right off the edge, which is like another 30 on top of that. But as long as you have good rhythm, you just stand there and jump and hit him. And to dodge these fireballs, you just walk forward a little bit. The fireball is a good attack. You want him to do that. He can also do a shockwave attack, which will probably happen. It's about 50-50. And to avoid that, you just jump over it.
Getting lucky so far, though.
Yep,
3 for 3.
Saving 4.5 seconds over the worst luck possible. I think casually I always use the like diving technique.
I think I used fire scroll actually.
All right, so you going 5 for 5? No. Okay.
We finally get to see the shockwave. Oh, Dizzy.
You can also do that. There's a few options here.
I actually didn't know you could just stand under him as well in that attack.
A little Barris strat, actually.
So now we're coming up on the final boss, and the only way to kill this enemy is actually by assimilating it.
And this is pretty good pace, actually. This is like 2:13 pace.
Yep. So you assimilate the boss 5 times. He goes through a giant pattern of multiple attacks that all kind of mimic stuff that Lumina would do. It's actually really cool and thematic. But we can actually skip most of his attacks if he manages to time his assimilations properly in between each other to chain them together. You're only supposed to be able to have a window to assimilate him once per attack, but we'll see how he does.
Yeah, ideally you see this attack and then the next one, but it's actually pretty tough to do that.
Also, to assimilate enemies, you're supposed to mash square. They made it purposely more difficult on this fight, that you have to mash much faster. So you see GanMa shaking his hand a little bit. He gets number 2. He can get one more, I believe.
Yeah, and that was really good. He has a ton of room for this one now. Good throw.
Nice.
Oh, that mashing though. Come on.
Oh, so close.
Unfortunately, it happens.
Yeah, especially on good paces, nerves can make mashing pretty difficult here.
Good.
Because not only do you have to mash quickly, but it's also kind of rhythmic. If you mash too quickly, the game will actually drop inputs and make it much harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, for some reason, I just mash with my thumb to avoid that because I know it's slower than my index finger.
Funny enough, though, it seems to only happen on PS2 and PS3. On PS1, those frames do not get dropped at all.
Probably because there are no frames on PS1.
Yep.
Game is just 1 FPS. So yeah, you should be able to get a double off here, which would still be a pretty clean fight. I mean, he's a bit close. Yeah.
Oh, a little too close. Yep. This
This
is probably
attack is really annoying.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's supposed to be mimicking. This is not at all like an ability you ever get. But fortunately, he just spawns in the middle. It's pretty easy to at least get one hit off here.
And that's game.
213 is really solid.
GG.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for us. If you enjoyed the run, go follow him. GanMa2525. If you're interested in the run, there is a Discord linked on the speedrun.com page for this game. Anything else you want to add?
That's it for me. Thank you guys for having us, though.
Yeah, so what's the next game we got here?
Let's go.
Check.
Fire Emblem
Fire
3
Emblem.
Houses.
And there's no one commentating.
I was
it,
gonna
so-
say, actually, so you guys get a little break until let's see.
Until Ghost comes back with Super
Yeah,
Paper
in an hour and a half, you guys will have Ghost Kumo once again. Aha. Oh, he's got his American copy as well. Yeah, so
Nice.
GanMa actually, while running for PBs, he runs on the NTSCU copy because it is faster. I'm guessing he's running on the J copy because this is RTA in Japan.
Yeah, he did do a lot of preparation on the Japanese version. I think his best run was like 3 minutes slower than his best American time.
最新の RTA チャートも一番近い場所で拝見させていただきました。勉強させていただきました。今後も武蔵伝コミュニティに積極的に関わっていけたらいいなと思いました。ありがとうございます。
こちらこそ本当にありがとうございました。
Oh, I think that's it for us, right?
Yep. So I'll hop out of here. Enjoy the rest of the cutscene, guys, and enjoy the rest of the marathon.
Hope you guys enjoyed. Later.
こちらもデバッグメニューを出すバグなどを見つけてかなりゲームを破壊しております。たまに配信などを行っておりますのでよかったら、お互い私とガンマさんの Twitter フォローなどよろしくお願いします。あと、武蔵伝は PS アーカイブスの方で、配信もしているので、PSP や PS ビータ、PS3 などでプレイができます。よかったらプレイしてみてください。はい、以上です。
でなんか本当はこんなに喋る予定じゃなかったんですけど、エンディングがいいところに行きそうなので、僕が一番好きなシーンを見て、締めたいと思います。何が好きかというと、この後になんだっけ何殿様だっけ
よろしくな殿様ですね。
よろしくな殿様って言って武蔵伝がバンって切り替わるので、そこでバイバイっていうことで
お願いします。
はい。はい、というわけでご視聴ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。